Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. The Jets have defeated the Titans. If you're joining us on the live stream, you can chime in at any time. Give us a follow on YouTube. But if you're not on YouTube, you can check us out wherever podcasts are streaming: iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever a podcast is available. You can check us out using the handle Rich Sports Talk. And unfortunately, despite the Jets getting off to a win, the first one of the season, we unfortunately have some breaking news that Jermaine Johnson is believed to have torn his Achilles. And again, another key Jet star with a torn Achilles. Robert Saleh moments ago just said that they believe he has torn his Achilles, which would mean he is done for the season. And before we get into the positives of this game, our thoughts and prayers go out with Jermaine Johnson's family. And this is a tough blow for a player that really was coming into his own, a third-year player. I really think we all were expecting Jermaine Johnson to really take a huge step this year and really establish himself as one of the best defensive ends in the game. It is incredibly frustrating that he loses the season to the Achilles. Our thoughts and prayers with him and his family, and which is a horrible blow. We will get into the long-term ramifications of this injury, what this means for a certain contract negotiation that is still ongoing. But let us start off with the big picture. The Jets getting their first win. Now, again, it wasn't pretty. 24-17 victory. There was a lot of frustrating aspects of this game. You felt at times this defense, especially in the first half, wasn't playing well. This offense, at times, you wanted the Jets to pull away the game. I think the biggest chance in this game was the Irv Charles. And again, there are certain players, like we can call this the insert player game. I think Irv Charles, this was a standout game for him. Had the special teams block, the great gunner play, blocks the kick. The Jets 14-10. You think the Jets can go and punch it in, make it a 21-10 game. Tea and cookies for everyone. The game is over. Unfortunately, they are not able to finish it off there. They give us all heart palpitations to the end as it comes down to a 4th and goal play. Jermaine Johnson, of course, like we had mentioned, out in this game. A lot of questions how that's going to impact this team long term. Aaron Rodgers still showing a little bit of the rust, but ends up getting 2 touchdown passes, no turnovers. Braylon Allen had his standout game, and it makes you wonder why he wasn't used in the first game. Braylon Allen, 2 touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground, and showing why the Jets invested in him. I'm really excited to see his long-term aspects. Mike Williams making a guest appearance with a crucial conversion. They need to get him more involved. I thought the offensive line looked pretty good today. There is so much to talk about with this game, and there's so many long-term storylines because, again, the injuries are a big thing. The 2 biggest injuries, obviously, are C.J. Mosley and Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson, it appears, is done for the season. C.J. Mosley, the good news is it looked like a very bad injury. However, he was able to come back onto the sideline. It was doubtful. Now, with the short week, you wonder if he is going to be playing this week. But the one kind of silver lining that you take out of this game was Will McDonald. Will McDonald with a clutch sack on that last drive. Will McDonald leading the Jets in sacks with 3 today, with pressures. Like, this was the Will McDonald game like we were anticipating. Like, this is who we were hoping the Jets were getting with a first-round pick. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot more pressure on Will McDonald going forward, especially now with Jermaine Johnson out for the entire season. Hello, everyone, again. Please let us know in the comments. We are here live. JE, we are not winning more than 8 games in case you missed it. Gotta love the positivity. Mr. Magix, again, comment section is open. We are going to be constantly updating this throughout the show. Going to keep an eye on what's happening in terms of the press conference with Robert Saleh, with the injuries. But I love this question here. What's with Rodgers? I think a lot of it, too, is Rodgers. One of the strengths of Rodgers is that he has this ability to really go out there and make those last-second play adjustments. It seems like he was running through the clock a little bit. It was a frustrating game, I think, as a Jet fan watching, because you felt like this was a game where you were getting frustrated because they kept calling burning timeouts, burning those last seconds, some delay of games. Now, again, I still think there's a little bit of rust. Rodgers hasn't played in a full season. They didn't get any preseason. So to me, this is a little bit par for the course with this team, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, the Jets get out there with a win. I do think you're going to have to button some things up for Thursday night because even though the Patriots, I don't think are a talented team, I don't think they have as many weapons as this Titans team. The one thing you know with this Patriot team is they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They're not going to make the bad mistakes. They're not going to allow a punt block like Tennessee did. They're not going to have a crippling red zone interception, not interception. It was a fumble. The play by Will Levis. I don't know why I was thinking interception. I know it was the pass behind the line of scrimmage that turned into the fumble. So just to clarify that. But this was a game where the Jets, they had to win. You could not go into Thursday night on a short week against a team like the Patriots, who are a buttoned-up team 0-2. Couple of things from the Robert Saleh press conference before we get into some of your comments in here. Robert Saleh again saying it looks like Jermaine Johnson has torn his Achilles, would end his season. Saleh on CJ Mosley. Hopefully he is back for Thursday's game, although I will say Jamien Sherwood had an incredible game. And one of the comments I made after the Monday night game was this defense without CJ Mosley looked completely lost for a series, but I give them a lot of credit today. I thought they looked very good. Jamien Sherwood was flying over the field. I thought Jas Surratt had a good game as well. It was one of the interesting games, too, because you saw them playing Brandon Echols. I thought Echols had a good game. The safeties had a rough game. But, man, some of the penalties in this game, some of the coaching decisions in this game, too, is I think what's also frustrating for us as fans for this team. I mean, let me see if you've heard this one before. We'll go offensive and defensive. Offensively, how many series have you heard this? Run, run, pass. But I give them credit. In the second half, they opened up the playbook a little bit more, allowed Rodgers to throw on first down, and it seemed like the offense got into more of a rhythm in the second half. On the defensive side, you saw them include more blitzes in the second half. You saw them really knuckle down after an embarrassingly long drive in that first half, putting Tennessee ahead. The mind-crippling penalty after the Jets called the timeout to try to get the ball back before the half. Tennessee goes and completes a 23-yard pass and gets a 15 tacked on because of the Tony Adams penalty. Kick the field goal, Jets down 10-7 at the half. But again, a lot of credit for the Jets coming out. Great drive to get the score early to set the momentum for the second half. And look, I think that this was a game where you feel pretty good about Will McDonald. I thought that this was a standout moment for him. It, I think, softens, again, doesn't completely alleviate the blow, but I do think it softens the blow a little bit of Jermaine Johnson. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room, because it's been the elephant in the room for months now. The Jets have to, at this point now, figure out the Haason Reddick contract. They have to get him on the field. They have to figure out a way to get him on the field even for this year, because the Jets were already thin at the defensive end position. And now you're looking at a situation where you're going to go into Thursday night with Will McDonald, Takk McKinley, arguably as your top defensive ends, Michael Clemens in there. Like, the Jets need defensive end help. And at this point, I don't think Haason Reddick would be ready to go for the Thursday night game. It almost feels like you need to get this done in the next 48 hours so that Haason Reddick can be ready to rock and roll for week number 4. This is one of those opportunities that the Jets have to figure it out. And again, the Jets, you could say, and I've been saying for weeks, the Jets had the leverage. The Jets didn't have to go out of their way. But now all of a sudden, you lose arguably the most talented player at their defensive end position. The defensive end that was out there for every snap. The defensive end that was a great run defender. Now, all of a sudden, you look at the Jets' starting defensive ends, and as good as Will McDonald was today, can he continue to grow? Can he be an every down defensive end? We know he's a great pass rusher, but he has struggled against the run. Michael Clemens has been a disaster at the defensive end position. Takk McKinley has seemingly had more penalties than pressures, especially today. So now all of a sudden, the Jets, I think, have to. Like, if Joe Douglas isn't currently on the phone with the Reddick camp or driving to the Reddick camp's house tonight, they need to get on that as soon as possible. Alex, they didn't get any preseason excuses, just a mark against them coaching. Have you had your team ready to play game 1? Look, I get that, Alex. I would say, especially week 1, I think you have to give a little bit of leeway. But now coming into week 2, it is frustrating because you've seen them play a week. You want them to be a little bit more ready to go. If you hope that basically now they've ironed out a lot of the kinks going into the short Thursday night game. The big thing I'm curious about is going to be the health going to Thursday night, because now you have to wonder, is DJ Reed going to be ready to go? Again, we were on the assumption he'd be ready to go to game. He wasn't. And unfortunately, I don't think it was a huge loss, but you look, it's starting to add up. DJ Reed missed this game, CJ Mosley. All of a sudden, we're looking at a scenario for Thursday night where the Jets could potentially be without CJ Mosley, could be without DJ Reed, and they could be without Jermaine Johnson. Now, as much as I appreciate CJ and as much as I appreciate DJ Reed, I think the Jets have depth there. They've shown it today. I don't think that if they have to miss those games, it's the biggest blow. But Jermaine's a big hole on this team. Jermaine is a massive hole. Now, if he goes on the IR, which we're all expecting, because it looks pretty bad. I mean, you can tell when certain injuries, you can tell when it's bad. When you have the whole team hugging, when they're all bringing the card out as quick as they did, you can tell that this was a big injury. So now the Jets have to figure out what they're going to do. Now, again, I think that they're going to try to get the Reddick thing figured out now sooner than later, because now there's pressure on the Jets to get this deal done. But even if they get a contract done, I don't think he's playing Thursday night. So now the question is, who do you rotate in there? Do you bring Leonard Taylor in as an extra defensive tackle, but then play Quinnen Williams more at the defensive end position, which they experimented with the Monday night game? Do you put Eric Watts out there at defensive end? I mean, you have to wonder what they do. Could they maybe go the free agent route, see if there's maybe a veteran out there that they want to add? But it is just incredibly frustrating right now. As I'll get to some of your questions in a second, just making sure we're not missing anything from the press conferences right now. I know Saleh has basically said that he believes Jermaine is done for the season, which again is a crippling blow to this team. And it's just incredibly frustrating when you lose someone that you really felt was going to really establish himself as truly one of the premier defensive ends in the league. It's incredibly frustrating. But the biggest thing is, again, this is an ugly win. I still think a lot of Jet fans, and I can tell from the chat and the temperature on social media, it was a frustrating game. I think a lot of people were hoping they'd go in there, get an emphatic win, a statement win, a decisive win. It wasn't as decisive as we all would have wanted. It was a lot closer. It definitely creeped the anxiety up. But at the end of the day, the Jets are able to get the job done. They're able to get the win and able to get a crooked number finally in the win column and go into Thursday night with a W. Tony, we are thin to D tackle. Any updates on LT111? JFM and Reddick are JD bus. I think Taylor's going to play. Now, Taylor, if you follow me on Twitter, I posted for the game. I thought it was a mistake that neither Taylor or Watts was activated, especially after the Jets got the ball run down their freaking throats last weekend. Now, it's going to be interesting, Tony, how they play next week, because now Jermaine Johnson seemingly out for the season. That opens up a spot on the defensive line. And even if the Reddick deal gets done, he's not going to play Thursday night. So the question is, what do? Do they bring Leonard Taylor III into the lineup and then play Quinnen more at defensive end and rotate the defensive tackles a little bit more heavily? That could certainly be a possibility. Do they put in like an Eric Watts at the defensive end position, hope that he can kind of be more of a run-stuffing early down defensive end, bring McDonald in pass rushing situations? There are certain things you look at right now that, again, and I can sense this too with some of the comments too, 13 years. I agree this is an 8-win team. I think it's still a little bit better than an 8-win team. But this is a situation where the Jets now have to feel this pressure. And again, James, I think that the hardhead Joe Douglas is going to be like last year when he should have brought in a QB with Reddick. But the problem is, James, there's going to be pressure, I think, now. Because with Jermaine Johnson out, I mean, you can make the case Jermaine Johnson is – after Quinnen, the most valuable defensive lineman the Jets have on the field. As much as Will McDonald played well today, he's not an every down defensive end like Jermaine has established himself. Jermaine's a great run defender. Like Jermaine Johnson was really the key. And I think it was kind of we can survive without Reddick because we have Jermaine. We can survive without him because we have a Jermaine. Now you don't have that. And it's incredibly frustrating to lose a great player like that. I'm curious to see how the Jets will respond. I get the feeling like if I had to put money on it, that the Jets are likely going to try to get the Reddick thing locked up before week 4. He won't play the Thursday night game. And if I had to guess, they will do something like play Leonard Taylor the third at defensive tackle, put Quinnen more on the edge more, or bring in Eric Watts to play the edge off the practice squad. But let's get to some of the good news from this game. I thought Braylon Allen had an unbelievable game, 2 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry, only 7 touches. Brees, I thought, did a nice job running the football. But I do think, and I've said this before, I want to see more packages with both of them on the field. I think it creates more deception. It makes it tough for the defense to defend. And also, I think putting Brees as a wide receiver, like Brees Hall to me is this team's second best wide receiver. I understand how talented Mike Williams is, but you saw it today. Brees with the unbelievable touchdown catch. Like, this is a guy that can go and catch the football. Like, I almost would be more comfortable using him with more touches as a receiver than as a running back. I mean, Braylon Allen, I think, could be a good running back. I think it was good to see him today with the big touchdown run. You saw him wearing out the defense. And again, I think the Jets need to get a little bit more balance. 21 rushes between Allen and Hall, 30 pass attempts between Rodgers. Look at the receivers again. Brees Hall leading the team with 7 receptions, 52 yards, 7.4 per touch. Garrett Wilson, 4 catches, 58 yards as well. Quincy Williams, 8 tackles on the day. Will McDonald, 3 sacks. I thought they were the standouts on defense. Solomon Thomas also, I thought, played incredibly well in the middle as well. But again, guys, we are here. Let us know what you think as the Jets defeat the Titans to get their first win of the season. Big win, but also a potentially big loss with Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson is in good spirits, said he was crying on the field, said 24, 48 hours from now, he'll get over it and get back to work. Now, again, seeming like he's going to be out for the season, which is incredibly frustrating. And again, you look at this situation where you want him to be out there, but if you're the Jets, you really have to figure out this Haason Reddick situation, because even coming into this game, you felt like the Jets needed to get the deal done, that the Jets needed to get this figured out, that the Jets eventually had to get Reddick figured out. And now there's even more pressure, because for weeks I've said I really believe that the Jets have all the leverage. I really believe they have all the leverage. They have the controlling interest. They have the contract that rolls into next year if he decides to hold out a full season. Rich Cimini did a good job reporting that if he holds out the entire season, not only would he lose the contract, he'd be in the hole, because with all the fines, he'd be at $21 million, where his contract was $15 million. So he'd have a $6 million loss for not playing the entire season. Like, my thought is the Jets and Reddick will get it done. I have this feeling it's going to be a 1-year patch job. I know Reddick wants the 1-year deal, but at this point, I think the Jets just say, look, we need to figure this out. We need to get Reddick in here. And unfortunately, they've put themselves in this position where, yes, I do like the McGregor undrafted signing. Yes, I like the Eric Watts. I think they are very intriguing developmental players, but the key word is developmental players. I think that they are going to be guys that could make an impact this year, but likely are going to be more of an impact player next year or 2 years from now, where you are a team that is looking to get into the playoffs for the first time in 13 years and make a run once you get there. I still think that this Jet defense is very good. I would not use the term elite at this point. Again, I know they forced turnovers today, but to me, it was more on terrible decision-making from an inexperienced quarterback. I thought this defense did a good job on the 4th and goal, but at some point you're also like, get them off the field earlier in that drive. Like, it shouldn't have come down to a 4th and goal play. Like, that's my honest opinion. I still think there's obviously a lot of talent on this defense. You have Quinnen, you have Quincy, you have Sauce. I think there's still a lot of talent, but there is this sense that this Jet defense, I think they're just below becoming a really elite defense, because they're not a defense that scores touchdowns. They're not a defense that forces a lot of turnovers. And yes, I know they forced turnovers today, but like I said, I think a lot of it was on a young quarterback that was trying to make plays. And really, Will Levis at times this game looked dominant, which is something I think was concerning, because this was a guy who last week looked completely lost as a quarterback. And this Jet defense allowed him to move the football at times today, which was uncomfortable and it made you worried. And yes, I know they didn't have DJ. Yes, I know they lost Jermaine. Yes, I know that they didn't have CJ. But this is still a very supposedly talented unit that's supposed to be one of the better units in the NFL. And the fact that the Titans were moving the football against them like that today was very concerning. But at the end of the day, it was ugly. Was it the decisive win we all wanted? No. Was it a dominating win we all wanted? No. But at the end of the day, this was a big win. The Jets had to get a win on the road. They had to come out of here at 1-1, and they did it. Now, again, they lose Jermaine Johnson. And Solomon Thomas said it just now. Solomon Thomas and Jermaine Johnson losing 11 is like losing a heartbeat for this team. Like Jermaine Johnson's one of the key players on this team. Like it will be a big loss. It will be a painful loss this season. But the Jets really now have to figure out Hassan Reddick because this defense, even if Will McDonald continues to develop, even if Will McDonald continues to create these pressures, it's clear that this Jet defensive line is lacking talent. And because it's lacking talent, it's exposing other issues like the safety group. I think that this is a solid safety group. But the problem is when the Jets pass rush isn't getting home, they're getting exposed. They're getting targeted. And again, I thought Tony Adams was a bit up and down today, but this was a game where the Jets had to get a little bit out of their comfort zone. Again, I give them credit. They started actually blitz because they realized they can't get home with 4. But long term, they need to figure out how to be able to do that and how to figure out how to get something with Reddick done. I feel like we overcame just poor game playing by our staff because we just had slightly better players and Levis made some cost position. And look, 13 years, I get it. This was, again, a frustrating thing. Like, I would say after 2 games, reading Jet fans and reading your comments, reading you on social media, there is a lot of concern about this coaching staff. Like, I get it. Like, this is a team that, again, we saw it early. This team looked to come out slow out of the gate. This team looked slow to make adjustments. And against better teams, you're not going to be able to survive. You could do it today because you were against a young quarterback and an experienced quarterback. And look, I think that the Titans are not a bad team, but the Jets are a more talented football team. And there are times when you're just looking at like the offensive play calling, especially in the first half, where it's run, run, pass, run, run, pass, run, run, pass. And you're like, can we get some variety with this Jets defense? You're like, okay, this is a young quarterback. Blitz him, throw him off, like disguise some blitz packages, make him uncomfortable. Like when a quarterback knows it's a 4-man rush, it makes it a little bit easier because he knows he's not going to get that additional blitzer. He doesn't have to try to figure out, okay, is the safety coming on this play? Is the linebacker coming on this play? Could a corner be coming on this play? He knows, okay, the defensive line in front of me are the 4 guys that are coming after me. Like they need to do that. They need to figure out how to generate that pass rush. And there were times it was inconsistent today. Now, I thought this defense buckled down in the second half. I thought they got off the field. Yes, the last drive was concerning, but they still were able to pull out a victory today. I think that there's a lot of positives. The usage of Braylon Allen is something that I was really excited about. I think they finally have shown why they drafted this kid and why he can be a difference maker on this team. But there are times you're just looking at the usage, like with Breece Hall, like they need to design more plays for Garrett Wilson. They need to get Mike Williams more involved. I mean, Malachi Corley, like, again, if you're going to draft and trade a guy in the high 3rd round and trade up to get a guy, could you use Corley? I know they love Xavier Gipson on the kick returns, but could they maybe give Malachi a chance to return a kick? Could they maybe design a jet sweep for Malachi? Could they maybe design like a receiver run or a wide receiver screen? Like, I'm not asking Malachi Corley to get 10 touches a game, but could you design like 2 or 3 plays? Like just 2 or 3? Like, can you find Conklin? Conklin finally had a catch today. Like, the Jets have weapons. Like, we have a cabinet of ingredients, but it's like instead of using all the different spices, the Jets keep just using salt and pepper. When there's paprika, there's like all these different marinades, but the Jets are like, no, we'll just stick with salt and pepper on this offense. Tony, let Rock rot unless he honors his contract. Principles matter. Heads need to roll, especially when they are incompetent and have no improvement in the game plan. Well, Tony, here's the thing. I honor the contract. I get that. And I understand where the Jets are coming from, on the principle of everything. But the problem now is, for weeks, I've kept saying the Jets have all the leverage. The Jets have all the leverage. The Jets have all the leverage. But now with the Reddick situation, unfortunately, the Jets have a massive hole. And this is a team that needs to get after the quarterback. And now all of a sudden, they don't have Bryce Huff. They don't have John Franklin Myers. They don't have Jefferson. And now they don't have Jermaine Johnson. And look, I thought that this defense, they got away with it today. They were able to get away with it, but could they maybe get away without Hassan for another week or two against some weaker teams? Sure. But long term, the Jets, they need Reddick. And especially now when Jermaine Johnson, like, this isn't an injury where Jermaine's out for 3 or 4 weeks. Like, you can look at that and say, okay, we can get by for 3 or 4 weeks. When it's pretty clear Jermaine Johnson's season is over. Like, you now have a massive hole to fit. And Jermaine Johnson isn't just a good pass rusher on this team. He was a tone setter in the run game. And now all of a sudden we talk about this run defense, which is porous. And now all of a sudden you could make the case that 2 of the 3 best run defenders on this defensive line are out. Fatu's out till at least week 5, and now you lose Jermaine Johnson. So after Quinnen Williams, who's a good run defender on this defensive line? And yes, I understand that the counter argument is, well, Hassan Reddick's not going to help this run defense. I get that argument. But at the same time, would you feel more comfortable in week 5 if Hassan Reddick is rushing the quarterback for this defense than in a crucial third down, Takk McKinley, Jalen Holmes, McGregor? Like, I get where people are coming from. 13 years. I gotta give 13 years a lot of credit. So, isn't capable of using all those spices? He just knows how to make grilled cheese. Like, I don't even think he knows how to make grilled cheese. I think he just knows how to make the butter toast at the pan, basically, 13 years at times. Like I had a tweet earlier, and again, chat, let me know what you think. And I think that this is a fascinating, fascinating debate. Who has the more blander offense in Jets history? Is it Adam Gase or is it Nathaniel Hackett? Like, I was really thinking hard about this during this game. Like, who has the blander game plan in Jets history? Like, I was really debating this because I don't think it's a clear-cut answer, but I want to hear from you in the chat. Let us know. And if you're joining us in the podcast, let us know in the comment section of the podcast as well. We want to hear from you as well. But again, I thought the special teams had a good game. Aaron Rodgers, after an Achilles injury, first 2 games, 31 of 51, 343 yards, 60% completion, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Look, I think it's clear that you're seeing that the mobility is limited from Rodgers, but I did think he's getting good protection. The Jets running backs, 3 touchdowns today and 170 yards combined on the ground. Jamien Sherwood coming in relief of CJ, led the team with 8 solo tackles and 12 tackles total. I think that this is a guy that, like, really stepped up. And part of me is looking like if CJ Mosley, if they move off him at the end of this year, I mean, Sherwood is a guy with Quincy. Like, I wouldn't mind those 2 linebackers. They both fly sideline to sideline. I thought they did a really good job today. And look, I think that the Jets showed that they have depth at the corner. They definitely have depth at the linebacker. But now the problem is, do they have the depth at the defensive end position? And right now, I don't think they do. I do not think that they do. And look, I get this was a nice win, but this is frustrating where you have likely Jermaine Johnson out for the season. You're going to have to find a replacement. And look, like, there's no replacements really on the free agent market right now. Like, the best option is, unfortunately, it's Hassan Reddick. And like I said, I don't think this is going to get done before the Patriot game, but something has to be done. The big question is, well, look, Tony, we can beat this dead horse with a stick, but they wanted to clear up JFM for the money. They wanted to make more cap space for Reddick. Again, I've been critical at the time. I've said I think it's the worst trade Joe Douglas has made. I've been a Joe Douglas supporter, but that was a trade that made no sense to me. Maybe it was Paul. Good one from Scott. Ben Jesus, for 3 years, we've known Saleh's a completely incapable coach, and this win will mask how undisciplined, slow they start every game. Look, it's frustrating because I think I think with Jet fans, I think the one thing we're looking at is like, okay, we're seeing glimpses of the talent, but it does feel like there are times where this team is being held back from by the coaching staff. Like it's a team that like you see the defense, it's like they need to make adjustments or be more aggressive, and it's still a very vanilla defense. There's times in the offense, like you're seeing all this great innovation around the league. And I know Rodgers doesn't want a lot of hoopla on the offense, but can we get something other than 2 runs, 3rd and 7, and a pass on 3rd and 7? Like, can we throw the ball on 1st down? Can we run a receiver end around one time? Can we get a motion? Can we get a jet sweep? Like, can we get some variety? Just some variety? Like, the one thing I will say, if you're looking at the coaching staff, is at least the special teams coaching staff came to play. I mean, the special team staff had an unbelievable job this week. And you saw today that this was a team, the Titans, that they watched what San Francisco did. And this was my big concern coming out of San Francisco was teams are going to watch that and go, okay, this Jet defense, they're struggling against the run. If we run the football at them, we can get them. We can move the football. And look, there are times like today, I thought Tennessee was especially moving the football on the ground. And I think the frustrating thing for Tennessee is it's one of those games where I think Tennessee looks at this game from their perspective. And if you're a Titans fan, it wasn't that this team really lost to the Jets. It's that this team blew opportunities against the Jets. I mean, they're in the red zone, had a crippling why do I keep saying intercepted? A critical fumble. They had a punt that was blocked, and the Jets only got 3 out of it. Like, there were opportunities for the Titans to win this game, and they were in this game in spite of bad quarterback play. Where does that sound familiar, Jet fans? Oh, wait, that's been us the last 12 years of our lives. What do you think about my quarterback so far in 2 games? DC for Saints. Derek Carr. Look, Derek Carr's been unbelievable. And I think a lot of people are going to look at this and go, like, say, well, Derek Carr should have come to the Jets. Derek Carr. Look, I think Carr is an underrated quarterback, but he went to the perfect place. He's in an indoor stadium. He's with great weapons. I thought it was a great fit for him with the Saints. With the Jets, I wanted Carr, but with Carr, you needed an offensive coordinator. You needed someone to help them out. And when the Jets fell in love with Aaron Rodgers, it was clear there was going to be Nathaniel Hackett. Now, do I think the Jets might have been better off with Derek Carr? Maybe. But the thing, too, is Derek Carr last year was also a disaster. I mean, we talk about the Jets' disaster with Aaron Rodgers. It was a disaster last year at Derek Carr in New Orleans. And look, he's played great through 2 games, but let's see him do it for a full season. Like, the NFL, like it's 17 sprints in a marathon. Like every week, there's something like we look at, like, oh my God, like the world is ending for this team, or this team is terrible. But then the next week they go out and they drop 40 points. It's like, oh, maybe they're not that bad. Maybe they're not that bad. But good news is the Patriots lose in overtime to the Seahawks, 23-20. Vikings win 23-17 over the 49ers. Commanders in overtime over the Giants. And, look, the other big thing, too, is like the thing you also look for the Jets, too, is the Jets have some significant injuries. And as bad as the Jermaine Johnson injury is, you can survive losing defensive players. You can't survive losing a quarterback. And one thing that we have to look at, I think, this week is I don't think the Dolphins are a playoff team anymore. They don't have a backup quarterback. They might win some games, but I don't think that they're a playoff contender. And that's one less team in the AFC that I think the Jets realistically have to compete with. And I've been saying this all year. I know we have this in our minds as Jet fans, and you always want to win a Super Bowl. But my big thing is just end this playoff drought, get into the tournament, and see what happens. Like, just see what happens and be as healthy as you can when you get there. If Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are there on wild card weekend playing a game, even if it's on the road, I will be happy, because for the first time in my life in 13 years, I can say the Jets are a playoff team. Irv Charles, the MVP today. Allen was great. Missed him last week by poor gameplay. Yeah, Allen, to me, like, I think the Jets need to use him, like I said, with Brees in more two-back situations, having them both on the field, having Brees as a receiver. They need to be more creative. And a part of me wishes, and now again, Jet fans might think I'm crazy here. I would have almost wished to see what LaFleur could do with these guys, because LaFleur loved to do a lot of motion, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of creative runs. Like, I could see situations like, could you line up Brees Hall in the slot, have him come in motion with Allen in the backfield, take the snap, and then you have almost a double option where do you give it to Hall on the end around, or do you give it to like Allen on a dive up the middle? Like, there's so much creativity I think you could see with this team, and I think that's what's maddening is you see all these pieces, all these chess pieces that the Jets can use and creative waves and creative moves, and instead they're just playing basic checkers. Turbo Duran. I agree with what you said. Pete Carmichael was the problem in his stupid play, but thanks to Mr. Kubiak, we have a real offense. So Kubiak is an unbelievable play designer. I think especially the big reason for Carr's success too is they got the running game going. I think that the Jets too, like if they want to have a great season, they need to get the run game going. I thought the offensive line's getting a little bit better. I think once this season continues to progress and this offensive line gets more cohesion, they will be better as an offensive line. But one thing I want to say about the run game, and I know this Jet team doesn't love creativity, so I know I'm probably speaking to the void or, screaming into the void at this point, but let me say this. The Jets invested the 11th pick in this draft in an offensive line, Olu Fashanu. Can we see him? Can we line up? Like, if the Jets are going to run it on first down, I don't know. Can we try a play where Olu's the sixth offensive tackle, put an extra offensive lineman out there? Like, if the Jets are that dead set to run the first two plays of a drive, can we get the number 11 pick out there? He's obviously a talented player. Like, could you imagine let me throw out this play. You put Olu in at left tackle, but then you put Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses and AVT all next to each other on the right side, and you run behind those three mountains of humans. Like, that could maybe be a play design. Like, I get that you have Olu out there as a luxury, but when you have a talented player like that, can you figure out how to use him? And I will also say this too. I still think it's early in the season. I thought Tyron Smith has looked good, but there have been times, especially in pass protection, Morgan Moses, I think, is starting to show a little bit of age. If I'm the Jets and you get to a point this season where you think he's struggling in pass protection, you can't wait to get Olu. If you think Olu is a better pass protector and will protect Rodgers, because here's the thing. If you have to sacrifice some run blocking with Moses to get a better pass pro with Olu, I would do it. Because the thing is, the Jets are only going to be successful if they can keep Rodgers up, especially with his lack of mobility. So if Olu is the better pass block at the right tackle position, you have to consider that. Yeah, they need variety. 13 years. I mean, they said variety's the spice of life. Seriously, LaFleur was the least creative. Like, and that's the thing. Like, people killed LaFleur, but at least it was creative. At least it wasn't, hey, we're going to do a halfback dive on 1st and 10 and then 2nd and 9 and be 3rd and 8. And, they use Braxton Berrios in motion. At least there's more creativity. Tony, we miss LaFleur, who was creative and not predictable like Hackett. Alex, only way we do that is if we run past the rest of the season, take it or leave it. All right, let's get to some of the other comments that are coming out of the press conference right now. Brees Hall said that he always tells Aaron Rodgers to throw him the ball when a linebacker's on him and said that he's earned his trust. That was another annoying play in this game where if Brees is on a linebacker, they got to figure out how to do that. But the play where they missed the pass to Rucker, where they split everyone out, you even heard on the broadcast, they even said they put Brees on the linebacker. I thought the play was going to go to that side. So I was a little surprised, and I still think Rodgers is getting over some of the rust, and he really needs to get over it the next game or two. But you saw Brees go on the linebacker. It looked to be a one-on-one, and I get going through the progressions, but Rodgers, like, I think that should have been his first look. I think he should have scanned the left side of the field first. Instead, he looked at the right side, looked at Rucker again. Did Rucker let up on the play? Did he, throttle it down a little bit? Maybe. But again, as much as I think Rucker is a nice player, I mean, Breece is arguably one of your top two players on this offense. You have him in a mismatch. You've already seen him on the mismatch with the linebacker earlier. But it is incredibly frustrating. And I mean, let's put it this way. If you have Marvis Harrison Jr. in fantasy, you might have frustrated week one, but this week, 131 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. Jeez. But man, like, look, I think this is a weird win from the Jets. Yes, it was gritty. Yes, it was great to see them close out. Yes, it's great to see them get a win in the win column. But and you guys can tell me what you think in the comments again. Please let me know. I think a lot of Jet fans come out of this game with a lot more questions as answers. You now have the questions with the injuries on the defense with Jermaine, with CJ and DJ. Again, I think DJ and CJ are probably, maybe they missed Thursday, but sounds like they'll probably be good by week 4. Jermaine sounds like he's out for the season. I mean, those are big questions. Now, what does that do for the Reddick negotiate? There's a lot in there. But it felt like, I think what Jet fans were hoping was, yes, you get the win. Yes, you get that out of the way. Yes, you're not 0-2 to start the season. But I think a lot of Jet fans were really hoping that this would be a definitive game where you wouldn't have questions. But I still think now after this game, there's a lot of questions. With the play calling, do I think the play calling got better in the second half? Sure. But the problem is we've seen this a lot before, which is the Jets, unfortunately, tend to be slow to react in terms of the play calling, in terms of adjustments. Like we saw it all last year. They come out slow and then, they kick it up in the third or fourth quarter. But if you're against a good team, you might not have enough time to get back into a football game. There are times in this game, too, where you have the Irv Charles block punt. It's 14-10. And I know what every Jet fan was thinking, because I know I was thinking it. If they put this ball in the end zone, the game's over. If they put the ball in the end zone, the game's over. But you got this feeling they were only going to get 3 out of it, and it's still going to be a one-possession game. Of course, that's what happened. Next series, Titans go up and tie the game. Like, you just felt like there were times when the Jets could have really just stepped on the throat of the Titans and finished this game. The play where Levis broke out on the last drive for the big gain after it seemed like there was 4 defensive linemen around him. Somehow Levis just sneaks out there. Like, how the heck did that happen? Now, again, McDonald comes back later in that drive, gets the big sack. They get off the field on 4th down. But it was a game where you were thinking, okay, this was frustrating. You want to see the Jets have an emphatic game. Now, look, they also are coming off a game where they had the snot being out of them. It was an incredibly physical game on a Monday night, on a short week. They have to come back across the country, they have to go to Tennessee. I mean, a short week after a brutally physical game, and I think you could kind of see that this team was a bit worn out at times. Again, the schedule makers thank a lot for 3 games in 11 days. You really did the Jets a favor with that. But it's one of those things, though, that I think in the grand scheme, if you look at the whole picture, yeah, maybe it's understandable why this is a close game. But I think if the Jets had a 10-point win, they were able to run out the clock late, the defense looked impressive, even with the Jermaine injury. I think Jet fans feel a lot better, but still, like, it's a win, ... But the play calling could have been better. But the defense was iffy at times. But the offense was inconsistent. But Allen Lazard had the dropsies again. There's a lot of buts. Did the Packers offense play like ours when Rodgers was there? I think they were a lot better. The Jets, I think they were. Can Rodgers get to the playoffs with useless Sal? I think the Jets can get to the playoffs. Again, I think this is a 10-win team, even with all the issues. I do think the one thing, too, is figuring out this pass rush, because they need to figure out how to get Hassan Reddick in there. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat that are like, screw Hassan, but at this point now the Jets are a bit more desperate. This was one of those definitely stinky in spite of Zach Wilson type of games. Look, I think Rodgers, though, made the big plays. He had the big touchdown drive to seal this game, to get the go-ahead score. I thought that there were times where you saw flashes of Rodgers. Yes, the Lazard miss. There was times where there was frustration where you saw like close misses, and you're thinking maybe in a week or two they'll iron out some of those little kinks. But look, when the Jets needed big momentum in this game, Aaron Rodgers took care of it. The two biggest examples of me was coming out of the half, Jets are down 10-7, and they set the tone. They go out, they get the touchdown drive, they take the lead 14-10. They set the momentum for the second half. And then the last drive, which I also thought was a really good drive from Aaron Rodgers, but was also sneaky because they were killing a lot of time. They put a lot of pressure on Tennessee where they were only going to get one shot to go down the field and score. Now, again, to their credit, Tennessee went down the field and almost did it. But I thought Rodgers stepped up when the Jets really, really needed to in this game. There's a big holding on that left. Yeah, the refs were horrible in this game. First of all, the Jermaine Johnson penalty. Yeah, was it close to the helmet? Sure. But then Rodgers gets pushed out. Like when he's clearly out of bounds, he doesn't get a call. Like it's one of those things like with the referees in the NFL. Like if you're going to make calls be consistent, like if you're going to throw the flag for both teams. Like I thought the officiating was terrible. Our defense is our weakness. Well, I think the best thing about the Jets right now is their special teams, to be honest with you. When have you said that about the Jets? If Tony, if I'm really thinking about it, I think you're right. And part of it is the injuries. I think part of it is, not knowing what you have in that defensive line room. Look, I think the Jets are going to have a lot of homework. Now, I still think they're going to beat the Patriots. I still think they're a better team than the Patriots. But I think realistically, I think the Patriot game is going to kind of be like this Tennessee game. I think it's going to be a closer game than people want. I think the Jets are going to win, but what we all want as Jet fans is, again, because of what they've done to us for years, is we want to see a blood. We want to see the Patriots taken behind the woodshed for like a 30-10 win or something. And look, the Patriots, like I said, I don't think they have the weapons Tennessee does, but I also don't think they're going to make the mistakes like Tennessee does. I don't think they're going to turn the football over like Tennessee did today. I don't think they're going to have the special teams gaff like Tennessee did today. So I think it's going to be a closer game. I think the Jets will win. And again, you'll feel good because they'll be out of this short marathon of the 3 games in 11 days. They'll have some chance to recover. And I think you're hoping that there'll be some resolution in the Hassan Reddick thing. In terms of feeling, I thought Rodgers played decently. I think he was decent. I think we want more from Rodgers. But look, he's still 40. He's coming off an Achilles. He's still getting used to his teammates. I mean, can we also put Mike Williams out there? The one play they designed for Williams, he gets the catch, like, I don't know, like in the red zone or on third down. Can we put Williams in there for the conversions at least? I mean, that was one that also bothered me too. Chiefs fans hate Chris Jones last season until he came up big in the playoffs. It's not money. And if we're not chasing Davante Adams, just pay reg with Hines. Look, everyone keeps saying Davante. I get the appeal of Davante Adams, but here's the thing. Davante Adams is a luxury for the team. He's a luxury. You know what's more important for this team right now? A run-stuffing defensive tackle and pass rush. That's what they need. Reg, to me, is more important than Davante Adams. Yes, Davante Adams takes a lot of pressure, but look, the Jets have Breece Hall, Brown Allen, Mike Williams, like Malachi. I mean, they drafted Malachi poorly, and they're barely using him. Like, it's like the Jets have receivers. It just feels like they don't know how to freaking use it, which is, I think, incredibly frustrating. This team needs to start looking more prepared. We can't keep waiting until the second half. I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, RJF Media, but man, like you can't keep doing this. And like that's the thing where this coaching staff, I think, is going to take a lot to earn this fan base trust, because we've seen it too many times with this coaching staff where this team has come out slow. And look, they've had their defense has bailed them out a lot of times in the last couple of years because the games have at least been close. But was it the short week maybe for prep? Maybe, but like you can't keep coming out this slow. And it doesn't seem like the Jets make adjustments until it's like, okay, we have to do something else. We're not going to move the football at all. Like there's just this frustration. Like I just look at like there's no creativity with this offense. Like again, I go back to this but like LaFleur, at least you felt like there was a game plan. At least there was structure. At least like the first 15 plays felt scripted. Like you felt like there was something. Like if one thing wasn't working, they'd at least try something. They tried trick plays. They tried creativity to spark or get something going. Where here it's just like, okay, halfback dive. All right, halfback dive. Okay, receiver screen, and we're punting. It's like, what? It's like, can we do play action on first down? Can we do a screen on first down? Can we get crossing routes to get 2nd and 5 on first down? Like we just need some more variety. My point being that we aren't tied to any big cap hit players. So if we're not getting, yeah, I agree. Just pay Reddick out. At this point, just pay Reddick. They got to figure out at this point. Look, I also have to give a lot of credit to Jermaine Johnson because for someone that season is probably over, someone that's probably also in a lot of freaking pain, by the way, because he tore his freaking Achilles from what we're hearing, to stand there and sit there and talk to the media after the game, I thought was very important. I thought that was a very good look for him, and I think it shows the type of player he is. And Jermaine's a really easy kid to root for. This is someone that went through JUCO. He really worked his way up, worked through Florida State, has worked his way into this line, and I think has done a really good job. Melvin, hey, good to hear from you, Melvin, my man. Let's see. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but the thing though is I don't think there's a guy currently out there right now where you really love it. Now, it's one of those things where, especially with the edge rushers at this point too, I'm just trying to think like who are the free agents right now because I'm trying to go through all the cuts. But one recommendation I would say, and you guys can tell me if I'm out of line or if I'm wrong here. In some ways, I think for the time being, that the best thing for the Jets to do for the short term is play Quinnen on the outside more and let Taylor III play at defensive tackle. Or you put Watts at defensive end a little bit more. Now, again, I think Quinnen at the edge could be disruptive. Now, does it weak in the middle a little bit? Sure. But to get your best defensive lineman, could Quinnen on 3rd and long on the outside one-on-one, maybe create more matchups. You have Solomon Thomas, who I thought had a good game on the interior with Kinlaw. Mix Taylor III in there. Ngake's out there. Shaq Lawson. Did Shaq Lawson? Did you say Shaq or Shaw Lawson? Just so I know. I just want to make sure. Was it Shaq Lawson? Yeah, I think you mean Shaq Lawson. I try to remember, did he retire? The problem is some of these defensive ends has also retired. Ngakwe, I'm trying to see if he's still out there. Again, like the problem is like there's so much movement in the NFL right now. I'm just trying to see if he's out there. I'm trying to think, is Ngakwe injured though? Because he got injured last year with the Bears late in the season. That's the problem too. Like I'm not sure like who's healthy at this point right now too. Randy Gregory, I wouldn't mind that. Shaq Lawson, not bad. I like Q in the middle. They need D tackle and they need defensive end. Yeah, I agree. Just give Reddick the bag. I think the best solution is there for the Jets. It's give Reddick a contract. It's figure that out. And look, I think that the other thing you have to look at is you're not going to get anyone in a trade right now. So I know that's always a popular thing where people are like, oh, just trade. Like, they're not going to make any trades until the deadline. It's still too early in the season. But I think they're waiting for Fatu to get back. He's clearly the big run stuffer that they got this offseason. I think they're still waiting for him. That's why they're waiting. Yannick isn't a bad idea. There's still, again, there's some veteran edge rushers right now. So it will be curious to see what they do. Now, the problem with the Jets, especially right now, is they're coming on a short week. They're coming on the short week right now. So even if you somehow are able to sign someone, are they really going to be able to go right now? Are they really going to be able to contribute? Now, Ngakoue, maybe. I know Rasheem Green for Jacksonville is still out there on the market. I mean, and let's be honest, these guys are band-aids. They're not going to come in and replace Jermaine Johnson. They're not going to replace that production. Like, these are basically, you're covering a bullet wound with a band-aid. The only way you cover the bullet hole is if you get Hassan Reddick in here. So it's crazy. Al Woods is still out there. Look, Al Woods, I wouldn't mind as a defensive tackle. I think that they're happy with their defensive tackle room. So I would look at Woods. But, yeah, I also like what Melvin said. The Pats scared me. I think it's going to be a close game, but I still think the Jets are more talented. They have the better quarterback. They'll be at home. I mean, look, even though this was a very Jets crowd there, it's still tough to go out there on the road right now and go out there and win on the road on a short week. And look, I think a lot of people today, like I know last week everyone was killing the Will McDonald over Broderick Jones pick, but I mean, Will McDonald, for a little bit of context, is the first Jets player with 3 sacks in a game since 2019. And who can tell me who that was? I'll give you a hint. Wasn't a defensive lineman. It was Jamal Adams, who, by the way, for the Jamal Adams revenge game, and I wasn't out there a lot. And it's funny because, like, remember where he wanted to just play safety? Well, even on the Broncos, like, well, he's a safety, but he'll probably play more up by the box. So, also for Will McDonald, first Jets defensive line with 3 sacks in a game since Henry Anderson since 2018. The first Jet player with 3 sacks. And I'm trying to get all the, had 3 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, 3 QB hits. And I mean, here's the other thing. This is something interesting too. First Jet player with 3 sacks and a forced fumble since Muhammad Wilkerson in 2015. And also for Will McDonald, McDonald is matched his sack total from last year. McDonald 3 sacks last season, and he gets it all there. Are you talking Reddick or Hassan Reddick? I think you mean, George. Clock management is weird. Yeah, it's weird, Melvin. I'll tell you. I think it's taken some years off of all of our lives, to be honest with you, Melvin. Maybe Tack. Look, I think it's been rough for Tack. I was high on Tack McKinley, but man, like, he had the jump off sides penalty today. Like, I didn't think he had a really good game. Like, and it's frustrating because McKinley was a guy I was really high on. Now, again, he could still have a good season. He could still turn it on. But so far right now for the Jets, no sacks so far. We'll have to see what his pressures are. Like I don't think I think he's a nice role player. But again, we're still talking about trying to replace a defensive end that plays 65% of the snaps and is a good run defender. He's on the short-term 4-week IR, so he should be back at the earliest week 5. So he misses the first 4 weeks, Melvin. He will be back in terms of Fatu. He will be back hopefully for week 5. At least that's what he's scheduled to on there as well. And look, I get a lot of people going for the defensive tackle right now, but still, they need some edge presence. Like, they could go out there and get a defensive tackle. Sure, it will help in terms of the depth, but it is, I think, very frustrating. Despite the Killer Bees having a great day, despite Will McDonald having a great, despite the Jets getting a win today, it's still frustrating because you lose such a good player in Jermaine Johnson, who, again, when we go through the defense, he's probably not one of the first names you mention on the team, but he's still an incredibly valuable player for this team. But the Jets, of course, get a huge win today. They defeat the Tennessee Titans to get their first win of the season, and we will be back at it in short term for Thursday Night Football. But keep an eye on us this week wherever podcasts are available on YouTube. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the latest updates, because if the Jets somehow get an update with a certain defensive end or add a key piece before Thursday night, we will bring you with that update here on Rich Sports Talk and break it down with all the analysis. And of course, after Thursday night, we will be live after the game to give our thoughts and analysis for the Jets and Patriots, the first AFC matchup of the year. If you're joining us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. And don't forget, you can also take us with you in your pocket. We are wherever podcasts are available. SoundCloud, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. If you can find a podcast outlet, we are on it. But once again, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Rich Sports Talk. We will see you later this week for more of the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time.